I retired at age 50, and then I moved to Ukraine. And this is the story of how I met my Ukrainian wife. In 2014, I was living in Arizona, where I'm born and raised, and I was single. I met my future wife online. She was living in Kiev, Ukraine. She was born in Kiev, and she invited me to come visit her. This is probably like November 2014. I said, okay, maybe in April 2015, I can come visit you. And she said, how about January? So I said, okay. So I quickly went to my travel agent, and I bought a round trip flight, and I took a month vacation off at work, and I flew to Ukraine for the first time. I think I landed on January 2nd, 2015 in Kiev, and she picked me up at the airport, and she lived with her mom and dad and her brother in this 2-bedroom, or I guess it was a 3-bedroom apartment. And we dropped off my luggage, and then right after we dropped off my luggage, we went to the jewelry store, and I bought her an engagement ring, and we were engaged we were technically engaged to be married within an hour of me landing in Kiev, Ukraine. And we had just physically met for the first time. And that seemed kind of wild and crazy, but after we got engaged, I had to, we had to plan what the future and everything. And we didn't hire a lawyer to get us through the marriage process or anything. We had a list of things we had to go through, and we went through them. I had to get my passport translated into Ukrainian. I had to get my birth certificate translated in Ukrainian, and I didn't have my birth certificate on me, so I had to fly back to America. I came back later that year. I got my birth certificate translated in Ukrainian. I got my passport translated in Ukrainian. We went to the U.S. Embassy and tried to get it, and then we go to the U.S. Embassy, and the Ukrainian lady, she spoke excellent English, and she says, "Do you have an apostille?" I said, "What? What's an apostille? I never heard that word." Well, apparently there's a document, and it's a international notarized piece of paper, just one piece of paper that basically says you're single. And the only way you can get it is, or the only way I could get it, was the Secretary of State office in Phoenix, Arizona, because you can only get it from the capital city of whatever state in America you live in. And I think it only was $5, but I was in Ukraine, and I told the lady, I said, like, I can't produce that document. I mean, if I have to go to the Secretary of State in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm in Ukraine, she goes, well, you can have someone else go get it and mail it to you. I said, well, my flight leaves tomorrow. I can't, that's not possible. So I had to fly all the way back to America to get one piece of paper that cost $5. So that a round trip ticket at the time was around $1,800. So it cost me $1,800 just to get a $5 piece of paper in Phoenix that I didn't realize I need. And maybe if we would have hired a lawyer, I could have saved $1,800, but maybe the lawyer would have cost $1,800. I don't know. So, on my third trip to Ukraine, I had the document, and so we went to the government building, and you can get married by some government official in Kiev, Ukraine, and the fee for a marriage license was about $1.35. That's how super cheap it was, and I was amazed because my plane ticket was $1,800, and the apostille, notarized document, international recognized notarized document was $5, and then so technically it wasn't super expensive minus the air flight to get married in Ukraine. And so I think it took my fourth trip to Ukraine to finally get married in Kiev, Ukraine. And so my wife, or you know, my fiance and her best friend from high school, we went to the government building, and I guess I didn't realize that it's super easy to get married over there or over in Ukraine. And her parents didn't come, but we took a bus into the central region of Kiev from their apartment, and her brother didn't come, and it was just me, her, and her friend. And we walked in this government building to get married, and I signed some document. I autographed it, and it was a legal document, marriage document binding, and it was all in Ukrainian. It said my name in Ukrainian and where I was born in Ukraine. It said, I was born in Arizona, Maricopa County, whatever. And so I'm signing this paper. I can't even read. I mean, I could read some of the words, and I can read my own name in a foreign language, but basically, then the lady said blah 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 blah, and she did a 180 and walked away. So we're in this tiny little room, me, my fiance, and her friend. I think her name's Nadia. Yeah, her name's Nadia. And she walked out of this, or the government official lady. She was probably like 20, or maybe she was 30. I don't know. It's hard to tell. She walked out of the room, and I said, "What?" That it was 30 seconds, and after we signed the paper, she said something. She left, and then I said, "What? What did she just say?" She goes, "By the power and authority of Ukraine, you are now officially man and wife." And then she walked away. That was the wedding took about 15 seconds, and it cost $1.35 for the marriage license. And then she gave us this legal document, and then eventually in the mail, my wife got this, or maybe she picked it up later. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what happened, but we got this really nice certificate of marriage, all in Ukrainian. So we were officially man and wife after a 15-second marriage ceremony, or maybe 10-second. It was so quick, and I honestly didn't know 100% what was going on, because they're talking, and I don't know what they're saying. So, but it wasn't a shotgun wedding. It just was a foreign wedding, and it was so quick. So we got married in September 17th, 2016, and and her birthday was the next day. So we got married the day before her birthday, and so we came home, and her parents had a wedding cake for us. It was just a cake, but I think we had some ice cream, and that was the celebration. Like, maybe the reason why her parents and brother didn't come, because they knew it would take an hour to get there, and then it's 15 seconds long, and then an hour to get back. So it took us 2 hours and 15 seconds to get married. An hour there, 15 seconds, an hour back on the buses or whatever. Maybe 45 minutes each way. But so I'm legally married to my wife on September 17th, 2016, and then I fly back to America, and I have been financially supporting her since the day we got engaged, to 18 months earlier, approximately 18 months earlier, maybe 20 months earlier. And I told her I didn't want her to work, because if I come to visit and she has to work, plus when I met her, she was working a job where she was working 45 hours a week for $25 a week. So she was making approximately 50 cents a day, or no, 50 cents an hour, and $100 a month. And I said, it doesn't make sense for you to work 45 hours a week for $100 a month. I can send you $100 a month. I mean, I sent her a lot more than that, but it ended up that over from the year 2014 until I retired, I was sending her money every 2 weeks whenever I got paid, and I was supporting her family because so her dad was paralyzed. So when my wife was 9 years old, um, in Kiev, her dad was on the fifth story of a building that he was working for some company constructing this building, and he fell out, and she witnessed her father fall out of this building, and instead of dying, which he easily could have died, he was paralyzed from the waist down for the rest of his life. And for 11 years prior to me meeting her, she was 20 when I met her. Their family lived off. So the mom took care of the father and the kids growing up, her older brother, and they his disability paycheck from the government was $100 a month. So she was working, earning $100 a month. The income from like basically Social Security or disability in Ukraine was $100 a month. Their family was living off of $1,200 a month from the father's income, and the mom was taking care of her own mother, so my wife's grandmother, who had dementia, and her husband, who's paralyzed from the waist down for the rest of his life. And so for 11 years, they survived off money from her brother and her, and the disability income. I mean, she was going to school, so she wasn't working until she was out of school. I mean, so they were surviving off of $100 a month, $1,200 a year for 11 years prior to me meeting her online, and I didn't know that. I found out long time afterwards. I didn't realize how dire this situation was, and I didn't get that information. So the first trip when I went to visit, it was winter. I mean, it was January 2015, and it was cold. It wasn't as cold as it is this year, but um, I didn't realize my wife had these shoes that were like tennis shoes, and they had holes in them. So, and I'm from the Valley of the Sun, the desert, Arizona desert, and I'm not super familiar with um, what is it called, snow weather. But so she had these shoes that had holes in them. They're tennis shoes. They're not they're not warm, and they're not dry, or no, they're not waterproof. And she asked me if I could buy her some new shoes. I said, yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't realize that she desperately needed some shoes, and shoes weren't expensive. So yeah, let's go get some new shoes. And then I realized then the shoes that she was wearing, the old pair compared to the new pair, like she was suffering with these um, beat up old shoes in the middle of winter in Kiev, Ukraine, cold country. And I didn't realize it. So that was very humbling to be able to buy her some basic new shoes. I don't think, it's possible that she could only afford used shoes, or really cheap, low quality um, um, shoes, basic, generic tennis shoes, whatever. And so every time I visited her after that, I would go. In Tempe, there's a Nike outlet store at the Arizona Mills, and I would buy like 4 pairs of brand new, high quality Nike shoes for a really good price. And I'd get her every time I visited her after the first time. I would get her 4 or 5 pairs of shoes and take it with me. And her mom's like, "What about me?" So I get buy her mom 3 or 4 pairs of shoes, and then her brother's like, "What about me?" And I mean, it was very cheap shoes. I mean, the cost was very low, and very, as far as I'm concerned, very good quality and really cool. And her brother liked really flashy, um, like running shoes, like bright red or bright orange. So I would buy him the coolest running shoes. So her dad didn't need shoes because he couldn't walk, and I mean, he had shoes, but he didn't ask for any. He didn't want any, but and he didn't need any. But he never went outside. He basically was bedbound until he died eventually. But so the cool thing was every time I visited my wife in Ukraine and I would visit her like 2 or 3 times a year, every year until I finally retired, and then um, but my luggage would be full of Nike shoes from the Nike outlet store from Arizona Mills in Tempe, Arizona, and I was paying like $25 a pair of shoes or 30 for brand new Nike shoes. That's super cheap because I went to the mall in Kiev, the Nike that sells Nike stores, some like maybe like Ukrainian Foot Locker or something, and a brand new pair of Nike shoes was $150 in Ukraine. It's like who can afford that except for very rich people? I don't buy Nike shoes for $150, even if I could afford it, I wouldn't. And I would go to the Nike outlet store like every other normal human being and buy them for 25, $30, brand new. So there's a cop car. Oh crap! There's a cop. He's slowly watching me. Maybe he's gonna come and ask for my documents. Oh, he drove away. But he saw me. I don't know how he saw me with my camouflage jacket. But anyway, let's see if I'm still on here. Yeah, so still. Um, so my plan was to move to, from the time 2014 that we met online. We met in person on January 2nd, 2015, and I was going to retire in 2024. So approximately somewhere between 9 and 10 years after we met, we were married in 2016. So I had 8 years left before I could retire and move to Ukraine permanently. And then COVID hit in 2019, I think it was, and I couldn't. If I traveled, the problem was if I traveled to Ukraine, and then something happened to where I couldn't get back, and I run out of sick time and vacation time and whatever time, I'm not getting a paycheck because I can't. And then I have no income, so I had to keep working until I earn my pension before I can quit and move permanently. So I didn't visit her in 2019, and then or 2020 or 2020, and then the war started and the invasion in 2022 February. And so until from the time August 2019 till I retired in 2024 and flew in June 2024, I hadn't physically seen my wife. We kept in contact every day through Facebook Messenger and everything, but I hadn't physically seen her in 5 years. And I was married for 8 years, 8 years before I retired, but only, and during the war, I tried to get her over to America. And we were going through the immigration, refugee status thing, and it was like crickets because I went to the immigration office in Phoenix, the American internet or the American whatever immigration office in Phoenix, and it was locked down because of COVID, and or I don't know what their excuse was at this time, and that's fine. So, and it gave a number, a website to go, and I go to the website, and it says, "Oh, call this number." And I call this number. It says, "Go to the website." So it was a wild. It was a, I don't know what it was, but you could easily come across the border illegally through, what is it called? The southern border. You could easily cross illegally, but our plan was not to do that. And so she, in I think it was in February, right, or maybe it was in March, right after the invasion, she immigrated, or she became a refugee in Poland, and she stayed in a hotel for like 8 months. And the Polish government took in about 2 million refugees at the start of the war, and she was one of those 2 million. And she said she just basically lived in a hotel in the city of Gdansk, Poland, for 8 months, so she had room and board. They gave her room service, food, meals 3 times a day. And how nice of Poland to sacrifice for refugees of Ukraine. It means a lot. I think the Polish people and the government did an amazing thing. And they saved countless lives just because of that simple thing in other countries, all the other countries that took in the refugees. But that's the story of how I met my wife. But here's what I haven't said. So I think it was after we got married. I said, hey, tell me how long before we met online, whatever that, or here's what she said. She goes, so her mom told her, hey, look, you need to leave the nest. We can't afford, you're old enough to leave the nest. You need to find a husband or find somewhere. And we don't have a lot of money. So she prayed about it, and she took a bus to the downtown Ukrainian Orthodox cathedral or church in, I think it's called the St. Timothy Cathedral in Kiev. And there's a prayer box there. So she wrote a note and she asked God to help her find a good husband. And she prayed to God. Three days later, we met online. Yeah. I didn't know that until probably 2 years later, after that fact that she told me. So her family, and I said, well, and she told me about her dad's situation and incident, and I said, how did you survive for 11 years? How did your family of four survive for 11 years on $100 a month? And she said they couldn't afford meat or cheese. All they would do is buy a month's worth of potatoes, and they would ration them off for 11 years. Our family survived off of potatoes because they're super cheap in Ukraine in there. And they just made different recipes or whatever. So I basically helped their whole family and not realize that. And I didn't have a problem with it. So I think a coworker of mine thought it was crazy that I was sending her so much money to help our family. I said, but the coworker didn't understand that they needed the money way more than I needed the money, for comfort or whatever. And so I had no problem supporting my wife's family. And one of the supervisors agreed with me. I told the coworker, he says, it's okay for him to support the family. It's not like it's not like they became rich overnight. They were now able to eat normal, buy meat and cheese. I mean, imagine in America not being able to eat meat or cheese for more than a decade. Family of four, and the struggle they went through. So my wife prayed for a good husband, and I feel like God answered her prayers. And one of the things she likes about me the most is that I don't ever drink or smoke. I've never drank or smoked in my entire life. My parents have never drank or smoked. Both of their parents never drank or smoked in their entire life. And in Europe and in Ukraine and probably America and probably the whole world, that's not super common. So she was very happy that she found a man that didn't drink, and she, she didn't have a, when her mom tried to push her out of the nest or told her to leave the nest, she didn't have a boyfriend or any prospects. And so she was, and I didn't know this until a long time later, but um, after we got engaged, she says, "I will never let you go." And her parents loved me, and her brother loved me, and they said to her, "You better be nice to him," because the family just loved me. So I basically adopted a whole family. I adopted my in-laws. I adopted my father-in-law and my mother-in-law and my brother. My father-in-law and my mother-in-law didn't speak a word of English. My brother-in-law spoke a little bit of English. My wife spoke English, and I don't know. She learned in high school, I guess, but she speaks good English. She speaks better English than almost all the Ukrainians that I know of. Anyway, that's the story of how I met my Ukrainian wife, and we've now been married for, let's see if it's 2026, and we got married in 2016. We've almost been married for a full 10 years. And, um, 1 decade. It goes by fast. It seemed like yesterday we met, and now I'm retired, and um, so this is the second video I made today. The first one was going to the different seed stores, um, and I hadn't eaten for about 15 hours. I just, I wasn't hungry. So after I made that last video, I went straight to this restaurant that they serve the shish kebab wraps, and they serve cheeseburgers and hamburgers and everything. So I got a cheeseburger, large order of fries, and a Sprite, and it was twice as delicious because I was hungry. And and I was super happy, and I felt a lot better. And when I got home, the power was on, so I downloaded that video, and then the power turned off within an hour. And so I took a nap, and then after the nap, I woke up and the power was still off. So I decided, hey, as long as the power's off, I can still make a video, and then when the power comes back on later today, I'll download that video. So I made my first video about my story about being retired at age 50 and moving to Ukraine yesterday, and then I made that video this morning about 8:30 about shopping at a couple of gardening stores, looking for specific seeds and stuff. And then this is my second video. So this is my third video in 2 days. And I'm retired, so and I don't edit any of them. I haven't edited any of these videos, and so it's easy to record a video, download it, rinse and repeat, and I don't have to worry about clocking in to a job, and I don't have power at the house for any reason. I mean, there's no electricity and no internet, and I'm not online right now. I have my mobile data turned on, and I have my phone on super battery, whatever. I can't remember the term, but super battery savings or whatever. So the only thing I have on is someone can call me and I can call out and I can make a video. And I'm really shy, so that's the reason I'm wearing this camouflage jacket, because I don't want to bring any attention to myself, and I want to blend in with my surroundings. So now I'm gonna go home and eat something, maybe a nice salad, or who knows what I'm gonna eat. I might eat a nice sandwich. They do sell, there's one store in my town that sells peanut butter, and there's a couple stores that sell, jam or jelly. So I can make a peanut butter jelly sandwich, just like as if I was in America. Here, no one knows what a peanut butter jelly sandwich is, and I'm surprised they sell peanut butter because no one knows what peanut butter is. And they probably wouldn't like it, honestly, because I don't know too many foreigners in the world that like peanut butter. I might go to the store that sells that pineapple habanero hot sauce and get some of that. That's what I'm thinking of doing. But I am gonna bounce and go get something to eat. I'm getting hungry again after I ate